Here's a question that creates anxiety for millions of couples. How long should sex actually last? The disconnect between reality and expectations is staggering. Social media, movies, and locker room talk create completely unrealistic standards that leave many people feeling inadequate about their intimate lives. What I'm about to share with you comes from actual timed data collected from 500 couples across multiple countries who used stopwatches to measure the reality of sexual duration. The findings will likely surprise you and might provide significant relief. Here's why this matters more than you might think. Performance anxiety about duration affects up to 30% of men at some point in their lives, and these concerns often impact relationship satisfaction for both partners. We'll cover today the real scientific data on sexual duration, what men think versus what actually happens, what women prefer, and most importantly, why these numbers matter much less than you think. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Rains, and as a urologist specializing in sexual health, I've had thousands of conversations about this topic. The truth about sexual duration is both more reassuring and more complex than most people realize. Let's start with what the research actually shows. Before we dive into the data, it's crucial to understand what researchers were actually measuring. The scientific term is intravaginal ejaculatory latency time, IELT, essentially the duration from initial penetration to ejaculation. This definition is important because it doesn't include foreplay, which many couples consider a crucial part of their sexual experience. Why researchers use this specific measurement? It provides a standardized, objective way to collect data across different cultures and populations. However, it's essential to recognize that this clinical definition doesn't capture the full scope of human sexual experience. Many sex therapists and researchers acknowledge that satisfying sex involves much more than just penetrative intercourse. The study we're discussing involved 500 couples from multiple countries who were asked to time their sexual encounters over several weeks. This created one of the most comprehensive datasets on actual sexual duration rather than estimated or reported times. What makes this data particularly valuable is that it removes the guesswork and social desirability bias that often affects self-reported sexual behavior. Now, let's look at what men think should happen versus reality. Here's where the data gets really interesting and potentially reassuring. Men's expectations about ideal duration. Survey data shows men estimate the ideal length of penetrative intercourse should be approximately 16 minutes. What men think actually happens, they estimate that most men last about 9 minutes on average. The actual measured reality? The comprehensive study found the average duration was 5.7 minutes. This reveals a significant expectation gap that likely contributes to performance anxiety and relationship concerns. Men are setting standards that are nearly 3 times longer than what actually occurs in real relationships. What's particularly interesting about these findings? Even men's estimates of what other guys achieve are still significantly higher than the measured reality. The psychological impact of this gap cannot be understated. When expectations are unrealistic, it creates unnecessary pressure and can negatively impact sexual satisfaction for both partners. Geographic variations add another layer to this data. The study found duration varied by location, with Turkey averaging 4.4 minutes and the UK averaging about 10 minutes. This suggests cultural, genetic, or lifestyle factors may influence sexual duration. But here's what might surprise you about what women actually prefer. Research on women's preferences presents a more complex picture. A large-scale survey of 4,000 women found that the average desired duration for penetrative intercourse was approximately 25 minutes. However, this number requires significant context. The complexity of female sexual satisfaction. Multiple studies indicate that for most women, sexual satisfaction correlates more strongly with factors like emotional connection, communication, and overall relationship quality than with intercourse duration alone. Research from the Journal of Sexual Medicine shows women's sexual satisfaction is more closely linked to the quality of the entire sexual experience, including foreplay, emotional intimacy, and partner attentiveness. An important distinction: many women report that extended penetrative intercourse can actually become uncomfortable or even painful, suggesting that extremely long duration isn't necessarily desirable for physical reasons. The orgasm gap research reveals. Studies consistently show that women reach orgasm through penetrative intercourse alone at much lower rates than men, which helps explain why duration alone isn't the primary factor in female sexual satisfaction. What this means practically, while some women may prefer longer penetrative intercourse, the overall sexual experience, including communication, foreplay, and emotional connection, typically matters more than duration alone. Now, let's explore what affects sexual duration and why it varies so much. Factors that influence sexual duration. Understanding what affects sexual duration can help normalize the wide variation in the data. Age-related factors. Research shows that sexual duration often decreases with age, particularly after 50, due to hormonal changes, medication effects, and cardiovascular health factors. Relationship factors. Studies indicate that sexual duration often changes over the course of long-term relationships. New relationships may involve shorter or longer durations due to excitement, nervousness, or unfamiliarity with partners' preferences. Health and lifestyle influences, cardiovascular health, stress levels, alcohol consumption, certain medications, particularly antidepressants, and overall fitness can all significantly impact sexual duration. Psychological factors, performance anxiety, depression, relationship stress, and previous sexual experiences can all affect duration. Interestingly, anxiety about lasting long enough can actually contribute to shorter duration in some men. Biological variations. Genetics, hormone levels, and individual physiological differences mean that normal varies significantly between individuals. The frequency effect? Some research suggests that more frequent sexual activity may lead to better duration control for some men, though this varies considerably between individuals. Understanding these factors helps explain why the range in the study was so dramatic, from zero point 0.1 minutes to 55 minutes. This variation is completely normal and reflects the diversity of human sexual response. Here's what research tells us about what actually creates sexual satisfaction. Communication emerges as the strongest predictor of sexual satisfaction in long-term studies. Couples who can discuss their preferences, concerns, and desires openly report significantly higher satisfaction regardless of intercourse duration. The good enough sex model. Leading sex therapists increasingly recommend focusing on good enough rather than perfect sexual experiences, which reduces performance pressure and often improves overall satisfaction. Quality versus quantity research. Studies consistently show that couples who focus on the overall quality of their sexual experiences, including emotional intimacy, variety, and mutual pleasure, report higher satisfaction than those focused primarily on performance metrics like duration. The importance of realistic expectations. Research from relationship therapy shows that couples with realistic expectations about sexual frequency, duration, and performance report significantly higher relationship satisfaction. Addressing performance anxiety. Studies indicate that when men worry less about duration, they often naturally experience improvements in both duration and overall sexual satisfaction. The role of foreplay and afterplay. Research shows that women particularly value extended foreplay and emotional connection after intercourse, which can contribute more to satisfaction than intercourse duration alone. What this means for your relationship. Focusing on overall sexual wellness, communication, and mutual pleasure typically yields better results than concentrating solely on duration. While most duration concerns are normal variations, some situations warrant professional attention, premature ejaculation, consistently reaching orgasm within 1 minute of penetration, particularly when this causes distress for you or your partner, may benefit from medical or therapeutic intervention. Delayed ejaculation. Consistently taking an unusually long time to reach orgasm, over 30 minutes, or being unable to reach orgasm can also indicate underlying issues worth addressing. Sudden changes. If you notice significant changes in sexual duration or function, particularly if accompanied by other symptoms, it's worth discussing with a healthcare provider. Available treatments are highly effective. For premature ejaculation, options include behavioral techniques, topical treatments, and certain medications. Success rates with treatment are typically very high. Sex therapy provides valuable tools. Certified sex therapists can help with communication, technique, and anxiety reduction. Many couples find that a few sessions significantly improve their sexual satisfaction. Medical evaluation may be helpful. Sometimes duration issues are related to underlying health conditions, medications, or hormonal changes that can be addressed medically. The key point: if duration concerns are causing distress in your relationship, help is available and typically very effective. Here are evidence based approaches for discussing sexual satisfaction with your partner. Start with timing. Choose a relaxed, non sexual moment for these conversations. Discussing sexual preferences during or immediately before or after sex often increases defensiveness. Focus on positives first. Begin by sharing what you enjoy about your sexual relationship before addressing any concerns or desires for change. Use I statements. I'd love to explore, or I've been wondering about. Tends to be less threatening than you always, or you never. Ask open ended questions. What do you enjoy most about our intimacy? Or, is there anything you'd like us to try? Encourages dialogue rather than defensive responses. Normalize the conversation. Remind your partner that all couples benefit from ongoing communication about their sexual relationship. Be prepared to listen. Your partner's preferences and concerns are equally important to share and address. These conversations often improve sexual satisfaction regardless of any changes in technique or duration. Let's return to our original question with a broader perspective. The average duration of penetrative intercourse is 5.7 minutes, significantly shorter than what most people expect. This data can be reassuring for many couples who worry they're not normal. But here's the more important message: sexual satisfaction depends much more on communication, emotional connection, and overall relationship quality than on any specific duration. If you're consistently lasting around the average, or even somewhat shorter, you're completely within the normal range. If both you and your partner are satisfied with your sexual relationship, then you're already successful, regardless of any timer. For couples experiencing concerns, focus first on communication and overall sexual wellness. If specific duration issues are causing distress, effective treatments are available through healthcare providers and sex therapists. Remember that sexual satisfaction is highly individual. What works for other couples may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for others. The goal is mutual satisfaction and connection, not meeting arbitrary standards. Your sexual health is an important component of overall wellness and relationship satisfaction. Approaching it with realistic expectations, open communication, and willingness to seek help when needed typically leads to the best outcomes. Medical disclaimer: this information is educational and based on published research, but it doesn't replace professional medical or therapeutic advice. If you're experiencing persistent concerns about sexual function, consult with qualified healthcare providers who can provide personalized evaluation and treatment options. What matters most? Focus on what brings you and your partner satisfaction and connection. Communicate openly about your relationship, and remember that normal encompasses a wide range of experiences.